Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Quijano. President Trump says former White House staffer Omarosa Manigault-Newman lied when she called him a racist who has said the N-word on tape. Now the Trump campaign is taking legal action. But Omarosa says a new recording obtained by CBS News supports her claim that the Trump campaign was worried about the existence of a possible tape of Mr. Trump using the racial slur. In the new recording, Omarosa and two other Trump campaign aides, Katrina Pearson and Lynn Patton, discussed the potential fallout of an alleged tape.
I said, well, sir, can you think of any time that this might have happened? And he said no.
Well, that's not true.
He goes, how do you think I should handle it? And I told him exactly what you just said, Omarosa, which is, well, it depends on what scenario you're talking about. And he said, well, why don't you just go ahead and put it to bed? I don't know what the scandal is. No, he said it. He's embarrassed.
In response, Patton tweeted at CBS News saying, "No one ever denied we had multiple conversations about the Apprentice tape. What we refuted is having a call that Republican strategist Frank Luntz confirmed Trump said it." On CBS This Morning, Omarosa said she recently heard a tape of Mr. Trump using the N-word during his time on The Apprentice. She added that if she heard it while working in the White House, she would have left immediately. The president denies using the racial slur and continued his Twitter attacks against his former top aide. On Tuesday, he called Omarosa a, quote, crazed, crying lowlife and a dog, and praised Chief of Staff John Kelly for firing her. Here's what Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said when asked about Omarosa.
I think the president is certainly voicing his frustration with the fact that this person has shown a complete lack of integrity, particularly by the actions following her time here at the White House.
You stand at the podium and guarantee the American people they'll never hear Donald Trump utter the N-word on a recording in any context?
I can't guarantee anything, but I can tell you that the president addressed this question directly. I can tell you that I've never heard it. I can also tell you that if myself or the people that are in this building serving this country every single day, doing our very best to help people all across this country and make it better, if at any point we felt that the president was who some of his critics claim him to be, we certainly wouldn't be here.
Anne Gearan is a national political reporter for The Washington Post, and Kevin Cirilli is chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg. They join me now from Washington. Welcome to you both. President Trump's campaign is filing an arbitration action against Omarosa, alleging she breached a secrecy agreement. Now, Sarah Sanders was asked about non-disclosure agreements at their briefing Tuesday. Let's listen to some of that.
Have you signed an NDA?
I'm not going to get into the back and forth on who has signed an NDA here at the White House. I can tell you that it's common in a lot of places for employees to sign NDAs, including in government, particularly anyone with a security clearance.
So Sanders would not say whether she signed an NDA. Kevin, do we know what they've signed or how many people have signed some kind of agreement?
No. What we do know is that Omarosa Manigault-Newman did not have a security clearance, which is why she technically did not break any law when she used a recording device inside of the White House Situation Room, because it was not a classified briefing. At least that's how it's been explained to me earlier today by Republican Darrell Issa, Congressman Darrell Issa. So there's a host of questions that this episode of political reality television really are serious questions. One, regarding the issue of non-disclosure agreements for government officials. Two, obviously, the very clear racial element to this story. And thirdly, national security questions about who, in fact, is recording inside of the White House and even as far back as to the campaign.
And let me ask you, on this issue specifically of non-disclosure agreements, that's something we hear a lot about in the private sector, but have NDAs been used much in other administrations?
Well, this is the first, really, that we're hearing about it. I can't say for sure that it's never been used by any other administration, Elaine. I mean, what Sarah Sanders said today is that it's not uncommon in government. I've never heard of it. Certainly within the West Wing, it seems like a very unusual practice. In Trump's case, it's a carryover from his time as a private businessman, and he had people sign them during the campaign. Other political campaigns have used similar tactics or devices during the campaign period, and partly that's because they deal in proprietary information that another campaign might want to get its hands on. So, for example, if you hire a polling firm or a researcher or something like that, a campaign may have what could be described as an NDA, but basically it's a contract that information won't be shared with another candidate. But to carry that into government is certainly new in my book. The one that Omarosa signed and that is at issue now in the arbitration claim filed in New York dates from the campaign period from 2016.
Well, Omarosa is, of course, continuing her book tour, and she mentioned special counsel Robert Mueller in an interview earlier. Let's listen to that.
Let's talk about something you talked to Chris Matthews about last night, the Mueller investigation. Have you been interviewed by the special counsel?
I have.
You have it. And what sort of questions were they asking you?
That's the extent I can go in discussing that as well. I feel like my hands are tied because, as you know, I do love to communicate about the things that are going on in my life, but unfortunately I can't elaborate.
So the special counsel would not comment on Omarosa's claims, but Kevin, should we be surprised if she has been interviewed by the special counsel?
Well, I don't have any reporting to suggest whether or not Omarosa Manigault-Newman's statement saying that she is interviewed by the special counsel's office is accurate or not. She clearly says she was. In that same interview that you just played, she also, Elaine, says that she does believe she has violated the agreement that she signed in terms of a non-disclosure agreement. I think that collectively, outside of Washington, and I think there's so many questions about what this spasm of publicity means for this administration, particularly at a time in which, lawmakers are in recess and we're just ahead of the midterm elections. I don't think that Omarosa Manigault-Newman is in any way going to move political polls ahead of the midterm elections. I do think that this is the latest controversy of an illustration of a narrative that has been put forth against the administration that, quite honestly, should President Trump give a public interview in the next week or so, he's going to face questions on.
Yeah, I mean, and Kevin brings up a really interesting point here, because we do have the midterms just around the corner. And the president, when he's been out on the campaign trail, will try to talk about good economic news and point to that and highlight that as reasons why voters should get out to the polls and vote for Republican candidates. But he continues to tweet about Omarosa. He continues to tweet about the special counsel. To what extent is the president essentially stepping on what should be, for any other politician, a very disciplined message ahead of the midterms?
Well, for sure, he's stepping on the good economic message, which is the backbone of the Republican argument for the midterms. And it's one the president makes frequently. I mean, he tweets and talks about his economic record almost as much as he tweets about the Mueller investigation and the witch hunt in Russia and all the rest. But it's also completely true that if he were to simply say nothing about his former aide, Omarosa, and nothing about the Mueller probe, that the controversies surrounding both of those things would be less. They'd be certainly less in the public eye. Some people think that the president is potentially putting himself or aides in legal jeopardy with his tweets and statements about the Mueller probe and people who are associated with the Mueller probe. I don't think we know the answer to that yet, whether he's actually doing that, but that's another potential danger. And all of these are things make it difficult for many Republicans to run this fall. I think we just saw a little bit of that with one of the Republicans with whom Trump appeared in upstate New York yesterday. She spent as little time with him as she could.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much else that.
To
go ahead,
echo
Kevin.
what Anne just said, Elaine, because I think there was a great CBS poll that really illustrated this earlier this week, in which the majority of Republicans agree with the president that the Mueller probe is, in fact, a quote-unquote witch hunt. So to Anne's point, the base of the Republican Party has not deserted this administration, and in fact, they are agreeing with these tweets, agreeing with what he is saying. And I think, quite frankly, we miss that sometimes here inside of the Beltway, which is that this probe, and there are lawmakers in Congress who have echoed the tweets, echoed what the president is saying, and you're seeing that in polls that have come out recently.
So, Kevin, that leads me to my next question, because you had the president also talking about the Mueller probe on Twitter Tuesday. He said, quote, fired FBI agent Peter Strzok is a fraud, as is the rigged investigation he started. So is the reason why continuing to go after Strzok, even though he's fired, you're saying good political strategy for the president at this point, Kevin?
I'm just a reporter. I'll leave it up to the pundits to decide.
But could that be a deliberate move on his part to get the base solidified even more?
I interviewed Congressman Swalwell, a Democrat from California, yesterday, and I asked him point blank, I said, what's the deal with Peter Strzok being fired? I mean, good move, bad move. And he said he actually agreed with it. And so I do think that there are a lot of Democrats, particularly Democrats familiar with the intelligence community, who would agree that this is someone who put himself in a situation where he clearly needed to be fired. But to your point, Elaine, this is very much, and when I talk to sources who talk to the White House frequently on this type of consulting strategy, they feel that this is a concerted effort to try to at least keep the base of the Republican Party very much in line and behind this president on the issue of these investigations. Look no further. I've said this before. Look no further than this vacuum that we have in the speakership race in the Republican Party could be in terms of leadership race for the House of Representatives, where this is very much an issue against folks who are aligned with outgoing Speaker Paul Ryan and the Freedom Caucus.
So Peter Strzok is not the only target for the president. He also went after his own attorney general once again, Anne, Jeff Sessions, in a tweet. He's done this before, but I wonder, Anne, do his attacks on Jeff Sessions seem to be getting more serious, more intense?
I don't think they are getting more serious or more intense. I think everyone, including Jeff Sessions, has sort of come to see these as somewhat routine. Now, having said that, it's entirely possible that the president fires Jeff Sessions tomorrow, and I'm sure Jeff Sessions knows that that's a possibility as well. But the president has not changed his one basic complaint here, which is that he feels that he was done wrong by Jeff Sessions at the beginning, essentially when Sessions was interviewing for the job, because Sessions did not say specifically, explicitly, that he would recuse in this, were the whole Russia campaign interference question to become a legal matter overseen by the Justice Department. It really should have been obvious to anybody that Sessions would have to, given his campaign role. But because Sessions sort of, in Trump's view of it, because Sessions sort of let that be squishy or wasn't specific about it, Trump feels like Sessions was disloyal, and he has felt that ever since. I think he'll never change that view.
You know, and Kevin, it's interesting, though, because even as policy seems to be sort of simpatico with his attorney general on issues like immigration, this continues to be something that clearly is bothering the president, which he tweets about on a fairly regular basis. I wonder, have you had conversations with people about that? Because at the end of the day, when you look at these kinds of public statements by the president, it is remarkable to see the sort of forcefulness with which they're delivered. At the same time, this is an attorney general whose policies on immigration are very much in keeping with what the president's own campaign promises were when it came to this issue of being tougher on border security, being tougher on this issue of illegal immigration.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, look, this is a thread that we've covered in the industry for quite some time in terms of how the policy differs from the rhetoric. And on the issue of immigration, you have the president very much trying to enact a hardline immigration policy. But then on the issue of the rhetoric, you have him completely publicly going after the Attorney General for what he feels was the wrongful decision of the Attorney General to recuse himself. And dating back to the campaign, Senator Jeff Sessions was one of the earliest endorsers of candidate Donald Trump, at the time even the only senator, one of the only senators in the Senate to endorse his campaign on the issue of immigration. The senior policy advisor in the administration, Stephen Miller, coming from Senator Jeff Sessions' office on the issue of immigration as well.
And let's switch gears here, Anne. Your paper has new reporting on the politics behind the confirmation fight for Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh. The White House is warning Senate Democrats that time is running out for them to sit down with Kavanaugh. What does that battle look like moving forward, Anne?
Well, Democrats are claiming that the White House is rushing this, and that Senate Republicans are complicit in doing a rush job of having hearings very quickly. Before, in Democrats' view, there's been adequate scrutiny given to Kavanaugh's record, particularly a very long paper trail. I think the feeling in general in Washington is that that's an argument that the Democrats are making publicly without very much hope that it will actually lead to a delay in those hearings or any outcome other than Kavanaugh's confirmation. Where I think politics are getting really interesting is whether Democrats take those meetings. I think there's only been one so far. I may be behind. There may have been two, or whether how many Democrats would end up voting for him. Conventional wisdom holds that 3, maybe possibly 4 moderate Democrats who represent states that Trump won in 2016 are more likely than not to vote for him, and that would be more than enough to put him over the top.
Yeah, Kevin, what are you hearing about that? Because you do have these Democrats in these red states, and we know that there is pressure from outside groups as well for them to go ahead and confirm Kavanaugh. Are you hearing that these Democrats are now rethinking their decision to initially decide we're not going to meet with him? Because what's the political reality for those Democrats in terms of the number of votes realistically that they'd be able to get? The reality is he's on his way to confirmation politically, isn't he?
Right. Yeah, I do think that he technically right now would be able to kind of get through. That said, I mean, I would argue that the next 24 to 48 hours, when the Senate in particular meets for a couple of days, when they get back in town tonight, tomorrow, that this is really going to drive the conversation. Look to see what Senator Heidi Heitkamp says, Senator Joe Manchin, 2 centrist Democrats up for re-election, Senator John Tester. These are the centrist voices that I think a lot of folks are going to be looking out for. I do think that some of the issues that you've seen from the outside groups, from progressive groups as well, raising concerns about Judge Kavanaugh's positions on everything ranging from marriage equality to women's health issues, are all of which that could come up at his confirmation hearing. And that I think a lot of these centrist Democrats are also going to face questions on as soon as this week.
All right, certain to be contentious hearings.
Yeah.
Anne Gearan and Kevin Cirilli, thanks to you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elaine. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.